Okay, so now I'm going to hand it over to our speakers and they can go ahead and introduce themselves and we can get started.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Aruna. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I'm the founder and executive director of Desi Rainbow Parents and Allies. I'm also the proud parent of a transgender young adult who is 23 years old. His name is Leo. And I'm here today with my fellow Desi Rainbow folks to talk a little bit about the mental health. The mental health issues that families like mine face and also that LGBTQ folks face in their lives. And of course, we're going to be speaking from the perspective of South Asians living in the United States. And I'm going to have my two co-presenters introduce themselves, and then I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction to Desi Rainbow, and we'll get started on our conversation after that. Kingston, you want to go? Still muted.
Okay, can you hear me now? All right, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. First of all, thank you all for having us. This is such an important topic. My name is Kingston Koden. I'm from India. I'm from Tamil Nadu. I lived in Punjab. I lived in Delhi. I immigrated to the United States when I was about 9 years old. I've always grown up in the Washington metropolitan area. I'm queer, I'm a Christian, and I want to make the world a better place by sharing love, sharing art, and talking to young students like all of you. And that's my intro.
Wow, hard to beat you, Kingston. Hello, everyone. I'm Manjula. I'm in Redmond, Washington. I am a proud mother of a 21-year-old transgender student. She's actually going to be a graduate in the next month from UW, University of Washington. So we are pretty excited. We moved to the United States, or rather, I moved to the United States just about 10 years ago. It's coming up, my 10th anniversary is coming up. But yeah, as we continue with the conversation now, it'll be interesting to share my story. Yeah, thank you for having us.
And actually, I did want to ask if people are comfortable, if you'd like to introduce yourselves either by speaking, or if you want to just introduce yourselves in chat, so we know who's in the room, and we'd love to address any questions, of course, that you have. So feel free to go ahead and introduce yourselves if you'd like.
Hi, my name is Kingston. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, so I guess there are shy folks here. Yes, I should let Kingston take this over. You're gonna, everybody's gonna start like kind of, relaxing after a little while. But in the interest of actually presenting a workshop, I'm actually going to get started with a little bit of an introduction to our organization. And I just wanted to say we are really, thrilled to be asked to speak at a conference which really is for young folks, particularly with a very diverse background. So we are really interested in making sure that we serve a community of immigrant kids and their families. So just a little bit of a background. For those of you who don't know what Desi means, it is a in-group term used by South Asians. These are folks who are from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, basically the South Asian subcontinent, and they're part of a diaspora that has settled all over the globe. And we are very diverse in terms of our identities, but we are also very similar in terms of our cultural views, and particularly when it comes to our views about LGBTQ identity and how we react to that. So just a little bit about our organization and what we do. Let me see if I can move this up. Oh, there you go. Okay. So this is unfortunately, I ended up like with my photo in there, but I just wanted to say that the reason that this organization started was out of my own experience as someone who was an Indian American immigrant who didn't have pretty much any information at all about LGBTQ identities. And when my child came out, I was forced to confront the fact that I didn't know much and I didn't know how to react. And so it was a very difficult journey for me and my family. And I began to realize that it is very hard for immigrant families like mine to find resources and to find culturally competent resources because however much we are given mainstream resources, not a lot of us show up there. So I felt it was really important to address our specific needs in a very supportive, culturally appropriate manner. And so that's the way that we started this organization. We are mostly based in the United States, but as of the beginning of the pandemic, we are becoming increasingly global because all our work is now online and virtual. So that means, of course, it's open and accessible to anybody in the diaspora across the world. And so we see folks from everywhere, Asia, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, who are joining our groups and events. So addressing the issue of mental health, which is something that, we really are going to be talking about for this particular session. The main reason that there is such a strong need for this kind of resource is that essentially the statistics relating to mental health issues around LGBTQ identities are really, really concerning. I think many of you may already be familiar with some of these statistics. They come from Mental Health America, from the Family Acceptance Project, and of course the Trevor Project has also been tracking and documenting all these mental health statistics. And it is extremely concerning that so many LGBTQ folks, particularly transgender folks, are suffering. An astonishing number of transgender folks have attempted suicide. It's a horrifying statistic when you look at these. And of course, the fact that depression and anxiety are rampant, so is substance use. Particularly with LGBTQ youth, actually form the largest group of within the homeless youth population. LGBTQ youth are the largest group. One of the things that doesn't get addressed, which we are going to address today, is the needs of families of LGBTQ folks. So frequently, the LGBTQ community themselves are identified as a need, but families also have a great deal of need. We are dealing with lack of information, active misinformation, and we are dealing with our own depression, anxiety, and trouble relating to family acceptance and to battling community stigma against LGBTQ identities. So these are all the reasons why mental health issues are really important to us. Little bit about what we do. Our focus is in building community. We run monthly support groups. They're all virtual right now. People meet separately. LGBTQ folks come separately to a different meeting. Parents and families come to a different meeting, and allies come to a different meeting. And all our leadership are either LGBTQ identified themselves or parents and allies. So we're really proud of this because this is by the community for the community. And we are really creating leaders within our community who are stepping up to do this work. Couple of things about our programming. We've really identified the fact that there is a need for visibility of our stories. Asian Americans are often invisible within larger, American contexts in general, and obviously within the LGBTQ community. But without visible role models and what we like to call possibility models. I stole that from Laverne Cox. For those of you who don't know her, she's a wonderful trans activist and actress who said that I don't want to be anybody's role model, I want to be somebody's possibility model. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to elevate the stories of LGBTQ folks and their families who successfully navigate life. And in some ways that shows families that you don't need to be so scared if your kid comes out. And of course, our big issue is how do we make generational change happen? How do we change the way that children, grade school children right now are experiencing this issue of navigating their own identities and how their families are supportive or not supportive of them. So we're trying to do work with families with younger children. And of course, we work a lot in faith communities. The South Asian community is very embedded within faith communities. We have multiple religious groups within our community, and we try to address each one of those communities and see how we can support them and this journey of navigating both faith and family. We just had actually a beautiful celebration of Eid yesterday. We had LGBTQ Muslims, their families coming out, and that's really what we try to do, just kind of create these spaces where people can come. And just some basic, things about our growth. We are very small, we are very new, but we are growing at a phenomenal rate. And I think that's really encouraging, and we really feel that this is a big, big need in the community. What we can offer you for students and for universities, for colleges, we offer support and education for any LGBTQ identified person. You're welcome to attend our virtual groups. Everything is free. And of course, we try to offer as much educational information, storytelling sessions as we can, similar to what we're doing today. And how you can support us. This is something I did want to put in there. We are looking for interns. So if there are any students here who are really interested in working with an organization like ours, with a mission like ours, please volunteer. We have summer internships offered right now. You can go to our website, desirainbow.org, and sign up for any of the internships. You're welcome to, as I said, join in any one of our events. We're doing fundraising now because our big goal by the end of the year is to have staff. We are an all-volunteer organization. Everything that we do is run by volunteers. So we want to move on to the next phase of development. So certainly appreciate any of that. Just wanted to put our information out here, contact information. Again, it's all on our website if you want, and we're on all the social media channels. So please do follow us. So with that, I'm going to stop. And actually now the way that we had planned to do this, this event is to just keep it a conversation. And initially Kingston and Manjula and I will start with the conversation. And we'd love for you to join us. And, any questions, any comments, keep it coming. I have not had a chance to look at chat yet. So Kingston, Manjula, if you see anything in chat that you'd like to respond to, please, please do so. I wanted to actually get started with just asking a little bit of maybe a little bit of personal storytelling from both of you. We did briefly introduce ourselves, but I just wanted to kind of give both of you a chance to talk a little bit about your own journey as an LGBTQ identified person, as a parent, the kinds of mental health struggles that we face, and how we address those, and what are the kinds of resources that are available to us. And I'll get started with, my own access to resource was very limited, because finding mental health supports for someone who is navigating these kinds of journeys of, family acceptance, of our own immigration trauma. I struggled a lot to find good mental health support. And I was lucky enough to actually work in a mental health setting, but it was still very hard. And thankfully, I was able to find, at the time that my child came out, I was able to find a gender therapist who worked with our family and really helped us understand what it meant for my child to come out and for us to come out as a family. So that was really helpful. So I'm going to hand it over to Kingston and to talk a little bit about his own journey.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. So I'll tell you about my journey as a queer person, accepting, and the struggle that came from it. I always knew that I was queer, right? I mean, at some level, I think that we all know. We might understand what that is when you're very young, but And so you're trying to, the struggle for me came like sort of reconciling with that, and also having to think about my family, right? So if you're a South Asian person, if you're an immigrant, or wherever you are, especially for South Asian folks, the way we're raised is that it's just not you alone. You come with your parents, you come with your uncles, you come with your aunts. I see the South Asians laughing because they know, right? Your auntie has as much right to tell you to shut your mouth as your mother does, right? So so you grow up like, being part of this greater family that is very, very close to you. And every day you're thinking you're going to lose them, right? Because you don't know if they're homophobic or not, or you might know that they're homophobic. So, and as you get older and as you sort of, understand your own truth of who you are and your existence, So there's a part of it where you're getting clarity, and there's another part of it where there's a lot of fear, right? And I was very lucky in the sense that I had a lot of good friends who were very supportive of me. But I didn't really do a lot of healing until I found community. And community that really helped me heal was the Arunas of the world, the Manjulas of the world, who I call my Didi Rashmi in California, who had the same, who could not only understand the experience I was going through, understand the family situation and the fear of what the community is going to think and all of that, but really experienced it, so that was very, very helpful for me. But it was very hard because, as you're going through the coming out process, there is nothing that prepares you for it. You have not experienced this type of pain. You have not experienced this type of fear. And I got help. I was working, so I got therapy. And while I was kind of going through the coming out experience, I was in therapy. And then I started building my community. And then I gained so much from that. So many people who could empathize with me, who could tell me I've gone through the same thing. Your mother's crazy, my mother's crazier. This is what my mother did. Right? Like all of that, But for me, so there came a lot of healing for me for that. And from there, I decided, because I think that, if you're given something, you have to give back. Then I jumped into the advocacy world. And that has been the biggest blessing. And I've always, I've worked, lots of issues, but primarily around the South Asian family. So that's a little bit of my story. If you guys have any questions, you can put it in chat and I can come back to it.
Thank you, Kingston. You're always so transparent about things that you've encountered, and I think that's really helpful for me as a parent, and I'm sure for younger folks who are navigating their own journeys as well. Manjula, you want to talk a little bit about your own personal story?
Sure. So I think I would first of all call myself an educated fool. I kind of knew everything, but things always happen to others, never really happens to you. And when it happens to you, it hits you like crazy. So when my daughter, she first came out as gay, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess so, yeah. But then she said she's actually a trans girl. And at that time it was, the feelings that it's something like kind of a discovery, like what is she talking about? What did we do wrong? Where did we go wrong? Like Kingston mentioned, we are a typical South, and even I'm a very typical South Indian family. I'm from Hyderabad, but with roots in Kerala. So there's this whole extended family, and you're like, oh, you guys moved to America and this is why it happened. It's like a phase, it's a fad. But it was really tough to see what my daughter was going through. And I would say, and I want to add here that there is a trigger warning. She went through a lot of mental anxiety, a very high level of depression. And initially we just didn't know what to do. But then it takes an entire village to support us. So we had her school, her counselors who didn't even know what transgender person means. So it was more of education, not only for ourselves, but also for the community at large. But we were like, Aruna also said, we were very lucky to find an excellent gender therapist who walked us through explaining what this all meant. And it was really not us or me or my husband or moving to America that changed this, but then she was always like this. It was our mistake. We always had one boy and one girl, but then we thought we had two boys. So it's actually our fault and was just not her fault. But so changing the whole, understanding more about what this meant and how to support her. And we also went for a 6-month training course, both me and my husband, to understand why my daughter is going through so much of issues. And that was very, very helpful. So it was the dialectical behavior therapy. So not only my daughter went for 6 months, but both me and my husband also went for this therapy to figure out how to actually help best support her. But today, I would say that we are in so much better space. And as Kingston pointed out, we didn't have, and also as Aruna pointed out, I thought I was the only parent going through this here, because Indians, we really don't talk about it. it always happens to others, like I said, never to us. And if anything happens to us, no, what will people say, right? So we had to come and talk more about it. And I have taken every opportunity wherever possible to talk to young students like you as well. So, and being with Aruna, who's actually started Desi Rainbow, it's so liberating to know that there are a lot more parents and I'm just not all alone in this journey. So yeah, and any questions, please do ask.
There's actually a question from Brinty that
Yeah.
I can answer, and either you or Aruna, both of you, if you want to jump in and answer too. The question is, how did your family react when you came out? So I can talk to you about my experience as a person, but I want them to both talk about their experience because parents also have to come out, right? And this is why this organization is so important, because what happens to us as well, now I'm like your uncle, right? So I'm like an old man. But what happens to young people? Let me pretend like I'm one of you. So what happens to young people is that we have conferences like this that we can go to, right? They're like people like Dorothy Nguyen, who's like, I want to help my Desi friends, right? So there's community that we find. But our parents, before Desi Rainbow, they had no such thing, right? They don't have the resources, they don't have the support, and they're really living in the community. Like we as like younger people, we might be there, we might go to like family events and we might go to the temple or Gurdwara or whatever, but they're there every day talking to all these uncles and aunties, right? So they have their own coming out, which is even more dramatic, I think, for them. So I think it'd be interesting for you to hear about both of them, just because you don't know if you're struggling. I want you to think about your parents and their struggle, right? And I think they can put in perspective. So my coming out was highly dramatic. My mother is a hyper evangelical Christian and a strong Dravidian Tamil woman. So you can imagine, who watches lots of soap operas. So you can imagine how crazy it was. And it took a long time for her to deal with it. But it was after a few years that she accepted it. And I'll tell you how she accepted it. I tricked her. I told her I was going to take her to the ballet, but I actually took her to a play that was held by this group called Humsafar Trust in Bombay. They brought a Bollywood actress who was doing a one-woman show, and the whole play was about how a mother found out her son was gay by reading his suicide note. Right? So obviously, very manipulative on my part. Jesus, please forgive me. But I took her and it changed. Like, it just completely like changed like her perspective. And at this point, like I was dating, I had a partner and I was trying to get her to meet him and she wouldn't, like for years, she would not meet him. And then after this play, I was like, listen, I'm going to bring him tomorrow for lunch. And then she goes, okay, bring him for dinner because I want to get my hair done. They met, and then when she saw that we were just like a regular couple, just like her other son and his wife, and then we were supportive of each other, and she saw all of that. It took her a while to sort of deal with it, but she did. And then she had her own life event. She had like a heart attack a few years ago, and then I think when you come close to death, you're just like, screw everybody else. Like none of this crap matters, right? So don't get scared. Hopefully you don't have a hyper evangelical Tamil Dravidian mother. It's gonna pop off. Right? But the story is, even though the bad as crazy it was, everybody's fine, and you're going to be fine, and your friends are going to be fine. So, moms, what was your coming out story like?
Manjula, you want to go?
Okay. Yeah, I really have to, go back to about 6 years ago. So I come from a big family. I'm the 8th child. And I'm very, very close-knit with all the rest of the family who's back in India, and along with my husband's family. I spoke to each sibling for 30 minutes, explaining what's happening. And there were so many questions, it was crazy. But I knew I just couldn't do without their support because they mean everything to me. I mean, I would have, of course, gone ahead with this journey, but then having their support helps so much, right? One push, what is that Lift Karade song, which I remember, but it so helps to have them. But the first person I spoke to was my mom. She was at that time 80 plus, and she and my mother-in-law both helped in actually raising my children. So telling them was very important. My mom took it pretty cool. She was like, "Oh yeah, I've read about this in the Hindu scriptures. That's fine, good. All I want you to take care is she better be happy." I'm like, "Wow, that went well." But with my mother-in-law, it was just the opposite. There was a lot of anger. There's a lot of tears. There was a lot of, "Why did you move to the US? You changed her," kind of a thing. And it took more than about 4 months to for her to accept that, something like this is possible. But today she's in a position like, why did we even wait for so long? Maybe we should have started the journey much before. Um, it helped that my eldest sister was a doctor, so she would be on the phone every day with my mother-in-law, telling her that everything is fine, it's the right way to go about it. But I had a lot of questions from my family, and I tried my best to answer. So I actually did a question and answer email session with all of them, sent it to all of them. Took a while, but I'm very, very thankful that my daughter has all the family support today.
Thank you, Manjula. And time just went by like that. Like, I mean, we're actually like almost at time now, and we barely scratched the surface, but we did want to take some time to respond to the questions that are here in chat. And so I wanted to answer Eric's question. What is some advice you'd give the youth around breaking mental health stigma and LGBTQI plus stereotypes in their own communities? And I wanted to ask either one of you, Kingston, Manjula, if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I would say that, the narrative that we've been conditioned around is sometimes, not to go seek help, right? That these are problems that you just sort of resolve on your own. Especially, I think, like in the Asian community, in the South Asian community, there's stigma around, like, mental health. There's a lot of shame around it. So just like I would say how you have learned, right? Algebra and geometry, you learn all of these other things. And there comes a point in your life where you have to relearn, right? And you have to reframe, and you have to understand that the narrative that you were conditioned is not one that's going to serve you. Because the longer you live in life, whether it's uh, a relationship, whether it's coming out as a queer person or dealing with the fact that your child is queer, you can't do it alone, right? And there are all these like different cultural narratives that say like don't go and get help, or there's stigma around it, there's shame around it. There's nothing. We're all human beings, right? If we were ashamed of being sad, we should also be ashamed of being happy, right? It's all the same thing. And we were not put on this earth to suffer, right? So there is help, there are resources, go get it, and reframe this narrative that we've been conditioned by. So that's what I would say.
Thank you, Kingston. That's absolutely spot on. And the only thing I would say is that, there is such a generational difference in the way that we view mental health. I think many immigrant kids who have grown up here have a lot more language, as Kingston was saying, to describe mental health. And parents don't. We don't have the language to talk about this. So I think it's really important to start speaking about language and describing, how you feel when you're speaking to elders in the family or in the community. And I think just kind of finding this common vocabulary actually will take us a long way in terms of creating these conversations and talking openly about mental health and about LGBTQ identity. I did want to get to Dorothy's question and ask Manjula this. How did you find out about Desi Rainbow, and what's the most helpful piece of advice you received when it came to supporting your children?
I found Desi Rainbow thanks to Aruna, who got in touch with me. Yay. So it was very nice to meet Aruna, who went through a similar journey like mine. And then when she started this organization and she checked with me, and I'm like, of course, this is so helpful. Initially, I could not be part of the organization for some time because I was battling some of the issues that my daughter was going through. So it took me a while, but I think as of last year, I've been full on into Desi Rainbow. And what's the most helpful piece of advice did I receive when it came to supporting? I mean, I looked at myself like, if I have a right to live my life as authentically as possible, then who am I? I cannot really play God. So who am I to stop my daughter from living her life the way she is meant to be? I think that was a big guiding factor for me, that societal norms, yes, but then if it's coming in the way of my child's happiness, I shouldn't really be following that. So I would say that um, it is tough. It's not easy. It's really not easy. It's easy to talk now, given that we've gone through this journey for about 6-7 years. But initially, yes, it is tough. But I think just a little perseverance and a lot of love will help break through all those barriers. So.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to chime in with the best piece of advice, parenting advice that anybody has given me is I think it was actually kind of like more like I'm blanking on like an allegory or a saying, something like that. It is basically saying that hold what you love most in the world in an open palm, not in a closed fist. So the idea is don't crush what you love because you're clinging on to it so much. And that I think has stayed with me forever because my kid is the one that I love the most. And the open palm means that giving my kid the freedom to be who he is and do what he needs to do. And rather than clinging on to him and crushing his spirit and refusing to, acknowledge his truth. So I think that has been like a wonderful piece of advice for me. And with that, I think we are at time, right? Ritu, Brinti?
Yeah,
Uh,
no, that was such a beautiful note to end the workshop on. Just thank you so much to Kingston, Manjula, Aruna. Just it was such an open and honest conversation. I really felt like this was the next best thing to being in person. And I just appreciate the honesty and transparency and just the engagement also from the attendees. So just thank you again for speaking with us today, spending your afternoon with us. I'll go ahead and stop the recording and then end the call. But for y'all that would like to continue participating within our second day of conference, we have our student panel coming up as well as our second session of workshops. So I'll go ahead and add the website to the conference schedule right over here in the chat, as well as, oh, yes, the contact info website for Desi Rainbow. So Aruna has put them in the chat. So if y'all are interested and want to go ahead and intern with them, an amazing opportunity, go ahead and look out to that website as well.
yeah, and I just want to thank Ritu and Brinti for being so patient and doing so much work. It's wonderful to see students, taking on such a big challenge and putting on an event like this. It was beautifully organized.
Oh, thank you so much. Brinti, did you want to add anything else?
I just wanted to say thank you all so much for being here, because I think it's just like, especially being a part of the Desi community, it can sometimes be a little frustrating when we're trying to like raise awareness for just LGBTQ and just like how it's just normalizing it. So it's just honestly amazing just to like have all three of you here. I'm like, yeah. So
Yeah, so thank you so much again. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording and thus end the meeting. Thank you again, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Take care, do something for yourself, and just continue staying safe and healthy.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.